Hi everyone, it's Marc de Bruin from simplifyinglife.com.au, counsellor on the Sunshine Coast in good old Queensland, Australia. 2,400 years ago, or over 2,000 years ago anyway, a good friend of mine, Plato, came up with what is now called the Allegory of the Cave. And in that allegory, Plato sketches a story from a philosopher's point of view. So it goes outside counselling a little bit, but the story is actually quite prevalent. And here's the story. He says, look, say that there were three prisoners locked into a cave where they're actually so bound and so locked up that they can't move anything. The only thing they can do is look forward, is look straight ahead of them where there's a wall. And they can't move their heads, so they can't see anything but the wall. Now, behind them is a fire, and behind the fire there's a raised walkway where things happen, where people pass by with things on their heads and carrying things. Now, the fire obviously casts a shadow on the wall, and that's what the guys can see. The three guys in the prison can see. Plato says, well, what is reality? That was the nature of his question. What is actually real? What's the truth? Now, for the prisoners who can't see anything else but this stuff in front of them, the shadows playing out, that's what they would consider the truth. And there is nothing else they can see, so what else could be out there? They can't move about. Now, there's a whole philosophical story about what is truth and what is not truth, but the interesting spin to the story is, let's say that one of the prisoners breaks free, and that happens in Plato's story, and he's allowed to go outside. So all of a sudden, he can see what is real, what actually is happening out there, not just the shadows on the wall that he faces or has been facing his whole life, but there's a life going on behind him, actually outside of his environment, his perception. He actually sees that and sees there's a sun out there and there's all sorts of people and things moving. And then he has to come back, or he wants to come back into the cave and says to his mates, look, I've found the truth. There's more to life than just what we can see here in front of us on that wall. So you got to come with me. Now, the interesting bit, and there's a bit of truth in that one in counselling as well, obviously the two fellow prisoners don't agree with him, because he must be a lunatic. There's nothing else outside but what we see in here, and that is truth, that is perception. Therefore, the third guy actually was allowed to escape, or was able to escape, not allowed, but was able to escape, gets ridiculed and gets criticised for expressing what he thinks is the truth. In counselling, that's quite pertinent, and more in your own mind and also in other people's minds, obviously, because consider this question: what if what you are experiencing as a tough situation, as something that's not working in your life, as something that's not the way you would like it to be, what if that wasn't the truth? What if that actually was a shadow cast on a wall in front of you, that your senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth and your fingers are tasting, feeling, hearing, touching, smelling? But what if that actually was more a shadow than anything else, or merely a shadow? That's what I was going to say. What if behind you there's actually a world happening that's more truthful than what you see in front of you, the projection of that one? And what if you could get to that point where you see and realize that there's more than you think there is? Often that's what counsellors do, and psychologists. They work with people to help these people, allow them to see past their own stories. And it gets tricky when people find themselves stuck to their version of the story and therefore feel really bad, whereas techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy or any mindfulness-based approaches can allow us to go behind what our senses are actually showing us to be the truth, and find out that that could be a different way of interpreting what has happened to us, or a different way of seeing things, a different way of hearing things. So this story, the allegory of the cave, is fairly pertinent in counselling in that sense as well, that often when we get challenged in the way we look at stuff, we don't like that, we resist, because obviously the way we look at life is what we think to be the truth. And that's okay, that's fine. But sometimes there's actually more to it than what we think there is. And if a counsellor or a friend or any other therapist or whomever professional that's helping you challenges you to look beyond your own story, that can feel like a threat, because, well, I'm right, aren't I? Or am I? So whatever you think about something in your life, and that's sort of the lesson I think that I can take from Plato's Allegory, is that whatever we think to be true because we're looking at it might have a different way of looking at it as well that could work in your favor. That's what counselors do, and that's why I think counseling is such an awesome profession, because it allows me to help people to look beyond their own story and widen that story up, to find more things than they at that point can see because they might be blinkered or can't or don't allow themselves to look beyond the story there is. Plato took it into a philosophical direction, saying what actually is truth. Is truth purely what we see and see and hear and smell and sense with our senses, or is there more to truth than just that? That's an interesting philosophical discussion. For counseling, the nugget is whatever you think to be the truth, because that's what you're looking at, that wall with the fire behind you that casts shadows in front of you, might not actually be everything there is. And it could be well worthwhile to have a chat with a counsellor about what you think is bugging you, to see if we can open up the truth to a completely different perception. Something to think about. If you're interested, or if you've got questions about this one, you know where to find me, but let's start that discussion going, and let's open up the world a little bit to different interpretations to things. Look forward to it.